and data sourcing. We'll share about what they are, the main ones that everyone uses, how we use it at Taylor, and then how we help companies as well. And then we'll finish up with some case studies, and then let's leave the questions towards the end. There should be about 15 minutes for that as well. So a little bit about myself, right? Like they said, when I was 16, that's when I really knew I wanted to go into sales. So my dad owns his own windows, roofing, and siding company. And when he was 16, he's like, hey, I'm dropping you off at the trade show and you're going to get me leads, right? So did that, came back with a bunch of leads that wanted some projects done. My dad ended up paying me like $10 a lead or something. And I was like, all right, I think this is a little bit better than making pizzas. So started working for my dad the rest of school, really loved it. Saw how my dad worked with customers and it really just felt natural to me. So I had a huge passion for that going into school, where I went to MSU and knowing I wanted to go into sales, I majored in marketing, had a class with Yvonne, which is why I'm here. Learned a lot from her. It was awesome. And, just really did as much as I could to get more sales experience. I did the IB program and was the chief sales officer of that IB company. Just really did everything I can to better my sales portfolio for going into the workforce after, right? So fast forward after school, I started at Taylor Corporation. I know a lot of you guys are in the Mankato area, but Taylor's a marketing, communications, and print and technology company, right? So we help companies, speak to their customers, whether it's through print, online, data sourcing, really anything that has their brand on it, we can make or help get. So first year and a half at Taylor, I was a sales development rep, which is, front of the pipeline lead generation, where I'm calling all day, every day, studying meetings for account executives, and really just learning the principles of sales and the principles of your first career. So did that for a year and a half, and then I was going to go the account executive route, but it just so happened that my boss got a promotion and I started managing the team about a year and a half in. So I've done that for about 9 or 10 months now, and it's been awesome. I love leadership. I've always been really interested in it. Captain of the lacrosse team, and it was really just a good fit, right? So that's pretty much my story. Also, quick side note, we are hiring some more SDRs on my team. So if you guys know any people right out of school or early in their sales career, definitely let me know sometime after this meeting. But besides work and all that, I love hockey, played my whole life, love to go golf, and then I'm really big into music and going to music festivals and concerts. All right, so like I said, I'm going to try to keep this engaging and entertaining, right? So I don't know how familiar you guys are with the annotation tools, but you can find it on the top right. Let's see. They're on it's on the top right of the shared screen, and it's under options under annotate. And then you can either use the text button, which is when you click right there in the text, and then you can type things, as well as just click on the draw or arrow. Those are the two main ones that we'll probably use. Is that working for everyone?
We won't see that until you start doing the shared whiteboard and doing the annotation. I don't think we see them until then.
It should be on there already. So it's when you go up, it should come down, and then you click annotate. Can anyone try that and see if it's working? All right, well, we can just use the chat box then, just so we can keep moving here. So the story that I'm going to share today is about how to use intent triggers and data service to better serve your omni-channel messaging in a more timely and relevant fashion. So I'm going to set the foundation by talking a little bit about omni-channel marketing. I'm sure most of you are pretty familiar with it, and most of your companies that you're working for are at different stages of their omni-channel evolution, but it's pretty critical to set the stage for that before talking about how to effectively use intent triggers. So it's also important to note that, at Taylor, we're experts and we help companies all the time with their omnichannel marketing all day, every day. But as a company in our marketing program, we're really actually just kind of finalizing our approach, mainly because it's a lot different in the B2B space than B2C. But it's just kind of funny to note that although we help companies all day, every day with it, we're still not, as good as we can be at it on our side. So here we have a blank sheet where I was going to use the annotator tool, but I guess it's not working right now. So instead of that, we can just jump in the chat, and can you guys just put down some of the current marketing channels that you guys are using? And then after that, we'll put a break in it and talk about some of the marketing channels we want to use at some point. Like, for example, Taylor's really interested in starting a podcast, which I think would be a great way to get our name out. Lindsay said AdWords, awesome. Hannah, website. Facebook, MailChimp emails, Hootsuite. LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube trade shows, awesome. All right, awesome guys. Thanks for volunteering, staying engaged. So now let's talk about what you guys want to someday do and get to at some point. I'll start podcast. I know I already said it, but that's definitely in the B2B world. It's been a really good marketing channel. App, yep, awesome. SOE and publish content. Bridget said podcast, more videos. Yep, definitely. All right, cool. Well, thanks again, guys. So obviously, we just went through a bunch of different marketing channels, and obviously there's thousands and thousands of different ones, and it's always evolutionizing and changing. So there's thousands of ways to get in front of your customers, right? But it's essential to know that to ensure that your multi-channel marketing is actually omni-channel marketing experience. So a couple tips to change your multi-level marketing into an omni-channel experience are to remember that it's critical to have a seamless experience and consistent messaging throughout all your web marketing channels. To use the strength of each channel to keep a consistent message, and to make sure that the sales teams and marketing teams are aligned with the goals of the omni-channel campaigns, right? So, you could have a campaign running and marketing saw a 10% increase in website visits, but there was no more meetings booked. Obviously, that's not going to go over well at the end of the day when the sales team's upset and the marketing team, thinks they blew it out of the park. So that's a huge one as well. All right, so let's go back to the chat box again here. So everyone's pretty familiar with Disney, right? So before I share why I think Disney's really mastered their omni-channel experience, let's see in the comments why you guys think that Disney's such a good example for how they serve their omni-channel experience to their customers. Yvonne said, consistent brand image. Yep, definitely. Thanks, Yvonne. Available on a lot of platforms, Caroline. Yeah, 100%. Consistent messaging. Yeah, awesome. Thanks, guys. So the two biggest reasons that I see Disney as a company that's paved the way as one of the most user-friendly and best executed omni-channel experience for their customers is the fact that they have, like Yvonne said, consistent brand, web, mobile, and app messaging for all their different websites. And they also, the really big thing that I've seen is that they really merge their digital and physical worlds, which a lot of other companies can't do, right? So their mobile tools are integrated to simplify booking trips. And then once you're on that trip, you can have a GPS on the app that's going to pop up with restaurant recommendations in the park. And of course, you can just click reserve and do your reservation right from your phone, right from the app. And that app actually can even be used as a tool for the room key and also a fast pass to skip lines. So really what it does is just simplifies the process for buyers and for upsell, because, likely you could be hungry and you're walking down and you're like, okay, I could go eat $5 hot dog at the concession stand, or you get this recommendation saying, hey, why don't you eat at this nice restaurant? We have an open table. People on vacation are likely more going to do that. But I mean, if they didn't have that app, then they might not have done that, right? So that's why I think they execute it flawlessly. And obviously none of us are going to be Disney, but it's really important to design your omni-channel experience around your customer and that persona, and being mindful of where they're at in their customer life cycle and when they're looking to engage with the company. All right, now I'm going to kind of dive into the bread and butter of the presentation, right? So web intent triggers, there's 6 main ones. And I don't know how familiar everyone is with web intent triggers, but those are just web activity that people are doing that are giving you guys the heads up that they might be ready to buy, or that they might be ready to start looking for the product or service you sell. So the first one are first party intent data. These are interactions that you've been tracking on your own digital properties. So it's when a prospect's looking at your pricing page, downloads your ebook, signs up for your webinar, looks on your website, or even when your marketing and sales emails are being engaged with. So first party covers the obvious things that you need to track and leverage as context for your sales team for outreach, right? I mean, I'm sure we've all downloaded a case study off a website and have an SDR or someone on the sales team calling up the next day to follow up. So that's what first party intent data is. Second one is competitive engagement, and this is probably one of the coolest ones. This is it's the engagements on your competitors' content. So when people are looking at their marketing materials, visiting their sites, and even when for retail, when people are visiting your competitors' brick and mortar retail locations, right? So say I'm Lulu and someone's at Athleta, you can mine data through geo tracking to be like, okay, they're at this location, and then you'll know that you probably want to reach out to that person or start putting ads in front of that person. The next one is hiring, and this is a really popular one. Sales teams use Sales Navigator to track this, but it only tells you when someone's hired or promoted. But there's other ways, another 10 data tools that you can do to track this as well. But the reason why this is so important is because we know decision makers likely are going to change their tech stack or change something in the first 90 days of starting their new job. So that's a really strong indicator that you should get involved and start reaching out at the right time, right? So you think of a CMO coming into a new company, they're likely were brought in to make a change. So getting them right in the first 90 days is huge. Next is keyword interaction. So this is when someone's researching the services or products that you sell, like on any website, Google, Bing, etc. So if you sell like a marketing automation system, knowing when a decision maker is in your ideal customer persona stage that's consistently engaging with your marketing automation content is a good sign that you have a valuable conversation with that person. and you can share some new insights, strategies, things that you're doing with other companies, and new methods that haven't even came out yet. So use this data as context and how you want to market to them with target messaging and deliver it to them at the right time. And that right time obviously is now, right? Because they're researching everything and they're probably in that top of the funnel where they're just starting to talk and engage with other companies. Next is event attendance. So it's all about getting the data on who's attending the event and which events. And if you think about it, why do companies pay for exhibits at events? Because buyers go to them. So if a prospect is going to one or multiple industry events that your industry is in, get ahead of the game with intent data, and you'll be able to know who's going weeks before, where you can set meetings up with them instead of just sending them a message when you're already there, when they're getting thousands of other people reaching out to them at that time. And then last but not least is influencer interaction. And obviously, like in this day and age, influencers keep blowing up, whether it's on TikTok, LinkedIn, Instagram, you name it. So it's all about noticing when prospects are engaging with key industry influencers. That's a huge, great context for you to start reaching out with sales and marketing materials to those people, right? So if you think about the SEO influencer, Rand Fiskin, he shares tons of content, backlinks, and website tags. And if you sell something related to those keywords, seeing that a decision maker keeps engaging in his content obviously shows that they're probably interested and might be looking at buying those things as well. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about how we use marketing and data and analytics to prospect at Taylor. So the three main intent triggers that we use at Taylor are keyword interaction, competitive engagement, and first-party triggers. So all these triggers are in the awareness and consideration stage of the sales funnel, which is where my team comes in, right? So we get notifications when people are looking at our competitor sites, researching any of the products or services we sell, and or visiting our site. So once we get those notifications and kind of a better idea on who we want to go after, my team puts them in an omni-channel sales and marketing cadence that includes web advertising, marketing emails, a direct mail piece, phone calls, LinkedIn messages, videos, and sometimes we even send branded merchandise as well to the prospects, just to make sure we're getting our name and standing out in front of those active shoppers. So if you think about like the whole sea of prospects, right? Say we're going after the insurance industry and the whole sea is prospects and the fish are in there. Intent data is really kind of bringing us to a bay where the fish are biting per se. So it really just kind of helps you narrow in who's looking instead of just throwing your cast in the middle of the sea and hope whoever fishes by it is hungry or is looking to buy new things, right? So how we help companies is also very similar to how we use it, which makes a lot of sense. But, you know, we work with companies all day, every day by providing them with the data of prospects who are visiting their own sites, visiting their competitor sites, and visiting their competitors' brick and mortar stores as well. And then we also put them in an omni-channel marketing campaign for them, which includes a personal direct mail piece, up to 15 web ads, and then a couple marketing emails as well. So for example, imagine you're a director of marketing or director of customer acquisition at Lululemon. What we could do for you is that we could provide a list of people that are either geotagged shopping at Athleta or actively shopping Athleta's site, and then market directly to those shoppers, right? So if they're spending $100 at Athleta on yoga pants, they're likely going to be the same persona that Lululemon wants to get after. So it's just being able to, you know, help those people get their customers back from their competitors. And a lot of marketers are really interested in that right now. And another really cool thing that we do is shopping cart abandonment, right? So say you're on Lulu and you pick 5 different things, you know, a couple sweatshirts, a couple yoga pants, and a pair of shorts. And then you get off the site, it's in your shopping cart, you get off the site and you never check out, right? So we can put them in an omni-channel campaign for that as well. On that direct mail piece, we actually put the pictures of the 5 items that they had in their shopping cart, send it out on the direct mail piece and have like a 10% code on it. And, you know, a lot of companies have been really liking that idea as well. All right, cool. Now I'm going to dive into 2 case studies, and then we will leave some time for questions at the end here. So the first one of our insurance clients have been trying to win back business from former customers who hadn't purchased their programs in recent years. However, in-house efforts were not achieving the desired results. One member of the marketing department believed that analytics and an omni-channel hyper-personalization campaign was the answer. So they came to us as their trusted partner to strategize a plan. We developed a campaign that leveraged our strategic intent data, including the creation of lifestyle personas, by comparing 12-month active shopper list to their 3 years of past customer data. So pretty much what we did was they gave us a list of thousands of people, and then we found of those people who was still actively shopping insurance in the past 12 months, and then just started going after those people that were still actively shopping. So we used the past customer data and artificial intelligence to pinpoint who the best customers to target would be, rather than just go after that whole list of customer win-back targets. So when we designed the distribution strategy, we really did it on life stage personas as well, right? So finding that ideal persona for that insurance company and then diving in a little bit deeper after their active shoppers, and then figuring out what persona they want to go after just to better narrow who we wanted to reach out to. So we launched a 45-day omnichannel pilot and preferred assessments after that 90 days to compare the sales against the targets we went after versus the normal control group. And the pilot resulted in over 400 win-back customers for the client, over $250,000 of revenue for the client, and a 75% lift versus the control group. And then,
Dylan, could you define lift for everybody?
yeah, so the lift was included rates and response rates, and then people joining back up. So I think we had over 400 people that from that marketing campaign that signed back up for their insurance policy versus the control group, which was, I believe, 125 or 130. And then the last case study, which probably one of my favorite ones, super cool story, right? So one of our furniture store clients that we've worked with for a long time wanted to acquire new customers through a special promotional price discount offer. Knowing the results needed to outperform its previous campaign, the client approached Taylor for some fresh and creative ideas. So Taylor built a campaign founded by leveraging strategic intent data, including a 12-month active shopper based on active shopper personas. So the persona that we went after on this one was people that had recently just bought a house or recently moved, right? And obviously in that lifestyle persona and lifestyle change, that's a good reason for furniture companies to reach out, right? Because someone's buying a house, especially first-time house buyers. That was another persona that we broke out. That's a good thing to get in front of them because they're likely going to need to buy new furniture, right? So Taylor designed a hyper-personalized distribution strategy. We also ensured the campaign timing matched the client's seasonal promotions and performed a 90-day assessment to compare the targeted prospect versus our targeted prospect group versus the control group that they had. So we actually targeted 500,000 active shoppers over 90 days. The cost of the client was about $456,000, which included $56,000 for the campaign and marketing strategy that our team ran with, and then $400,000 for mailing services, postage, and print costs. So our campaign resulted in a 2.5 response rate, which is a lot higher than the industry average. we generated 13,000 different individual sales that resulted in over $16 million in revenue. And we were awarded 6 more campaigns and projects based on our results. So thanks a lot for listening. I hope everyone learned a couple things about the relevancy and timeliness of using intent triggers to market to your customers who are interested in learning about your services at that time. Let's open it up to questions.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, can you go back over the first party intent triggers? Like, what are those exactly?
Yeah, so first party intent triggers are when people are engaging in any of your own content at your company.
Engaging in, okay, in my content.
Yep, so whether they're on your website, downloading marketing materials, downloading case studies, viewing your marketing stuff on YouTube.
Okay, so then my next question is, how do you get all this information? How do you see like the first party intent triggers or keyword interaction, the competitive engagement? Like how do you see that information?
Yeah, so at a really high level, like our company has the capabilities to go through cookies, but I actually don't know exactly. Our marketing and data analytics team really knows how they source the data, but it's through cookies and pretty much anything you go on. Like, have you ever looked at a car or looked to buy a new car on one website and all of a sudden you're getting thousands of other car sites to
Yeah.
So I think it's just the cookies, and then I don't know exactly how we do it, but it's just the cookies and tracing back. Would be familiar to the Facebook pixel. I'm not too familiar with what the Facebook pixel is.
Might be able to help out here because I used to do that kind of stuff with my company. But basically, they put code whenever a client hires you, right? And they want you to work with them, like the furniture store, the insurance company. Then the data analytics folks at Taylor would give them a code and say, embed this in your website, embed it in your YouTube videos, embed it in your social media, and get that coded all over the place. And then they have computers that are watching for that code, gathering that information to be able to figure out those initial responses. Yeah, similar to a.
And then once it has the IP address that code finds, then you can pretty much look at anyone's history of what they've bought and everything. Because pretty much anytime you click accept, when you're like on a cookie page, if you click accept, it's pretty much accepting everyone into looking at what you've done and what you're going to do on that page.
I've got a question for you, Dylan.
Yeah.
You talked about personas.
Mhm.
How detailed do you get with your customer personas? Could you, perhaps give us an example of one?
At our company?
Yeah, like when you're doing the furniture store one, is that a super detailed persona?
Yeah, so for that persona, we were looking at, I believe, new people that have bought a house in the last 12 months. And we were looking at people that were still looking at other furniture companies. And I think the age was from 20 to 40. And then also that was a regional furniture company, so we went in on region as well. So, and then I believe they were higher end, so we went on income too. So it was but we work with the we work with the company to pick that exact persona, and then we can go as deep as they want.
Great. The example you gave is great too, because you've got demographic factors, you've got geography with the regions, and you've got the psychographic factor of them still looking for the furniture. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Specific.
Dylan, can you give an estimate? I think with the furniture company, you mentioned that it was many hundreds of thousands of dollars essentially to enact these services. I mean, could you paint a more clear profile as to the type of companies that are typically utilizing your services? Are there mid-tier or high-end? Do you have any programs and offerings for smaller companies along these lines? Because I listened to this. This is all really cool. As a small business owner, I'd love to utilize some of this, but it's deep money by the sounds of it. Anything?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. So yeah, that was just a high scale example, but we work with, retailers, e-commerce is really big, financial services and insurance, all with marketing data analytics, right? And on the lower end, I think as long as it's I think we could do a 30-day trial for a smaller end company from anywhere from 20,000 to 40,000, but that's on average going to be about that's going to be a lot less of quantity than 500,000 different leads. So it all comes down to the amount of leads you want, because it's a cost per lead price point.
Just playing off of Chandu's question, do you have any tips for really small companies, that relate to this sort of, tracking? Do you use things like Facebook pixels and LinkedIn Insight tags and things like that? And
Do we
tips
use that, you said?
Yeah, do you use those sorts of things, or do you have any tips for people who have smaller businesses along these same lines?
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with Facebook Pixel, but is that just tracking who's viewing your Facebook page? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely good. It's good to know who's looking at that. I mean, other tips, I would just, follow all your competitors on LinkedIn, right? And when you see people that are liking all their posts, then they might be interested in buying. So that's a good one to look at. And then pretty much just keeping an eye on your competitors on LinkedIn will help. I think we got a question. What's the longest time you've worked with one client? I mean, we've had clients for over 40 years, but is that what you're asking? Tamia? I'm sure I just butchered that. Yeah, well, we've worked with companies for, 30, 40 years. For these programs, we obviously go by campaigns, but we've been doing it for different companies, campaign after campaign for a while.
Do you provide in that initial quotations, if I'm looking at dollars spent on marketing, are you able to kind of, give some accurate estimates in that quotation, in that initial meeting, what the return would be for the marketing dollar, or how are some of the different ways in which you can do that, right? Because I think that's always a struggle.
Yeah, awesome question. So, I mean, one way that, especially for the furniture store, when we sent out that direct mail piece, it had either a QR code on it and then also a 10% off, right? So when they went in and used that coupon, whether they used the QR code or whether they used the coupon, they got to get their 10% off. That's how we track the ROI on that. So it just connected to that campaign to show that that's where the money came from, or that's where the sale came from. that what you're asking?
Kind of, but I mean, in the furniture case, uh, the quotation was $500,000 in terms of,
Yep.
and so, how are you able to project, how much they would see in return for that $500,000 investment? Like, because
Yeah. So
go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, so that company we had already worked with. Um, we've been working with them for a long time, so they trusted us, and pretty much a lot of our return on investment is pretty similar. It's a percentage on how many leads, but it's going to be different for every industry too, right? So it just depends on what you want. And also, like I said, even earlier, that you want to align with your marketing and sales, right? So we kind of figure out what that company wants and what their outcomes are, and then put together a project that's going to work for them. Let's see. I got a couple questions here. Lindsay said, what kind of podcast did your company want to start? I mean, I personally want to start a podcast on sales enablement and sales development. It's really big right now. There's a bunch of influencers on LinkedIn that talk about it all day, every day, like Sam Nelson, Beck Holland, and it's just really big. And so that's something that I'm interested in. Bridget said, how about a project / campaign time frame? The typical, the fastest we've really brought up a project and had it executed was about a month and a half, because there's a lot of IT and other security things where we're going to have our data team start, safely giving all these people, or giving the other company the leads. So there's a lot of IT stuff that goes into it, but it's about a month and a half from the first meeting to execution. And then typically we do a 3-month trial run first that is anywhere around that 30 to 40,000 point, just to prove ourselves. And so, like you said, Chandu, we're not going to spend $500,000, because if it's a small company, right? So we do a little trial just to kind of prove ourselves, and that lasts about 3 months. Other than 10% off, what other sales offerings help close the lead? So I think it was just the hitting them on all different channels, right? So we sent that direct mail piece. They were getting web ads popped up, and they were getting emails, right? So they just kept getting reminded that, hey, you were looking at furniture, come here. What types of client nurturing tools and examples can you give? So the way our team nurtures leads is just put them in a low touch sales follow-up, which includes either a call or email like every couple months, rather than a heavy hitting campaign. Different tools you can use are any sales enablement tool or any automated email programs. And even if it's at a really small scale too, then just setting reminders to yourself like, hey, I have this lead that's not interested now, but they said reach out in Q1, just setting reminders on, your Outlook or Google, just so it doesn't, get caught in the storm.
Go back to the slide that had the funnel on it, the sales funnel.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one. I think that's just a nice, helpful reminder for anybody at any level, to keep thinking about that funnel of people that you're bringing in, whether you're a company that's spending $500,000 or a company that's spending $500, getting that awareness, and then thinking about, the leads that come from that, and what kinds of tools and what kinds of messaging can you be doing at each one of those levels, that people are at. Like, where's your customer at, right? Or your potential customer at mentally. And I think that's one of the things that's interesting about this omnichannel marketing, that you're talking about is, as we all know, they always teach you in marketing that you gotta people have to see you 7 times, you know, and hear your name 7 times before they take any sort of an action. You know, it seems like part of what you're doing with all of these different things is making sure that no matter where a person is, they're seeing that, you know, that message over and over. It's really
Yep.
cool.
So going back to this diagram, if you look at these different stages, where would be the most difficult point of transition? Is it moving from awareness to lead generation to sales? Because I think to me that would be helpful to kind of gain some insights on. I mean, I think a lot of companies perhaps focus on awareness, but how do you turn awareness into leads or leads into sales? And
Yeah.
more now, sales into retention, your long-term clients essentially, which is going to be, you know, your growth strategy essentially.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would say a lot of companies do spend a lot of time at the awareness stage, and then, but pretty much marketing is in control of the awareness stage. And then once it gets to the consideration stage, then it's getting passed off to a sales team, which is either, you know, if it's a big company and they're just kind of considering, otherwise it gets passed off, you know, marketing qualified lead to an account executive. So it just depends on where in the company you're working at is pretty much where you're trying to, what stage you're trying to go after.
So you're saying in B2B, for example, at the lead stage, your most common method would be deploying your sales force.
Yep.
Essentially.
Yep. That's exactly right. Yeah. The second people are getting to that consideration stage, we want to have our sales force on it. But for the more people awareness, then most likely, you know, our marketing content are engaging in. And then once they're engaged in it, then they're likely going to be at the consideration stage where we do just deploy our sales.
Any thoughts on the B2C component and how this visual would change from that viewpoint? Because when you're going direct to customers, again, the awareness. Yep. Any insights on that?
Yeah. So sorry, I got muted somehow. Okay. So for B2C, it really depends on the size of the product that you're gonna buy, right? So if it's gonna be you know, candy bar, obviously the company is gonna spend a lot of money on marketing that's still at the awareness stage. It's just like, hey, like this, it's just normal marketing materials. But if you're buying a car that's B2C, then it's gonna be the same way that once people are aware and looking at cars, then they're going to have people on the sales team reaching out. So it just depends on the size of the sale.
Can you, I may have missed it, your third example, after the competitive engagement, you mentioned hiring and the CMO.
Yeah.
Can you kind of walk through that example again in terms of the actual deeper elements?
Yeah, sure. So on LinkedIn Sales Navigator, I'm getting some feedback. Okay. Yeah, it's like on LinkedIn Sales Navigator or LinkedIn or other sources of intent data, you can see when a CMO or other decision makers are changing their positions or just got a new position, right? So that was what I was talking about. That's when it's a good reason to reach out to reach out to that person and say, hey, like I see you just moved to this company. You're likely going to want to start to make changes, which is why they were probably brought on. So that's why it's a good time to reach out to someone that had just moved from company to company.
There's so much on the back end that you don't realize. It's crazy.
All right. Well, if we don't have any more questions, thanks a lot. If you guys have any questions that come up later, you guys can hit me up on LinkedIn, send me an email. I'm open for anything.
Well, thank you thank you very much, Dylan. Definitely, you've given us a lot to think about, many more things to think about, and really an appreciation of how vast this space is. You know, how many different things and elements that really come to play, and come to play in a very unified manner. We do have a few quick announcements before we conclude for the day.